In the final days of 1888, as the sun set over the British Empire, a new cartridge was quietly issued to troops manning the Lee Metford rifle. It wasn't born out of breakthrough, it was a compromise, a black powder round, hastily approved, awaiting the winds of innovation. And yet, this cartridge, known today as the 303 British, would echo through history like few others. From the muddy trenches of the Somme to the vast plains of Africa, from jungle patrols to deer blinds in the Canadian woods, its brass casing became a witness to empire, war, and legacy. This is not just the story of a bullet, it's the story of a technological gamble that endured. A rimmed cartridge that outlived revolutions in ballistics and refused to fade. The cartridge began as an answer to a question Britain hadn't fully asked. What comes after black powder? The Lee Metford rifle, elegant but short-lived, was chambered in this new round, the 303 British. It debuted in the age of black powder, but its destiny lay in smokeless innovation. By 1891, that innovation arrived, cordite. A stick-like propellant composed of nitroglycerin, gun cotton and mineral jelly, cordite burned hotter, faster and longer than anything that had come before. But it didn't play nice with the delicate rifling of the Metford. Barrels eroded, accuracy suffered. In response, Britain engineered a solution not just in metallurgy but in identity. The Royal Small Arms Factory at Enfield devised a new type of rifling, deeper, stronger, longer lasting, and with that, the Lee Enfield was born. The cartridge that started as a placeholder now had a purpose. It wasn't just surviving technological change, it was driving it. The 303 British wasn't just engineered, it was sculpted. Every angle, taper and groove carried intention. Its rimmed bottleneck case wasn't modern even by early 20th century standards, but it was reliable, especially under mud, heat and battlefield chaos. With a case capacity of 56 grains of water and a shoulder angle measuring 17 degrees, it offered just the right balance for bolt-action feeding. The rifling, 5 grooves twisting every 10 inches, gripped the bullet with authority. Land diameters measured precisely at 0.303 inches, while grooves stretched to 0.312, giving the projectile a snug guiding fit. But here's the quirk. No two surplus rifles were truly alike. You could measure bores anywhere from 0.309 to 0.318 inches. That meant reloaders had to test, tweak and measure religiously, especially those chasing accuracy in worn-out barrels. Over time, pressure standards evolved. SARMI capped average pressure at 49,000 psi. CIP, the European standard, proofed firearms to even higher thresholds. So yes, the 303 British may be old, but its resilience under pressure is anything but antique. Every measurement told a story. Every groove had witnessed a war. And those specs weren't just numbers. They were the blueprint for a cartridge that carried a century. The battlefield teaches hard lessons, and the 303 British learned them in blood. In the early years of its service, the cartridge went through rapid evolution, 10 marks of ball ammunition and over 24 total variants, each one trying to solve the riddle of wounding, accuracy and reliability. The original projectiles, 215 grains of copper-nickel, round-nosed lead, were designed for clean penetration, but reality shattered that theory. Soldiers in India's northwest frontier struggled with bullets that simply punched through and kept going, leaving enemies wounded, not stopped. In desperation, Britain introduced the Mark III cartridge. It exposed the lead core at the nose, unleashing expansion inside the body. The effect was immediate and devastating. At the Battle of Omdurman in 1898, Major Matthias of the Royal Army Medical Corps described a casualty with no exit wound, his shoulder shattered like glass, the joint destroyed entirely. The bullets didn't pass through, they detonated within. Outrage followed. The Hague Convention of 1899 banned expanding bullets in warfare, calling them inhumane and excessive. Britain, caught between tactical advantage and moral scrutiny, withdrew the Mark III, IV and V. Over 45 million rounds, sent not to the front lines but to the firing range. In the end, ethics drew a hard line, and Britain adapted again, issuing the Mark VI, a round-nosed bullet that followed the rules, even if it didn't break barriers. In 1898, a French design quietly rewrote ballistic theory. The Ballistics, used in the 8x50mm Lebel, was the first military Spitzer bullet. It wasn't just pointed, it was lighter, sleeker and faster. Suddenly, velocity wasn't just about range, it was about lethality. Britain took notice. By 1910, the 303 British shed its round-nose identity with the introduction of the Mark 7. At first glance, it looked like a standard pointed bullet, but inside was a secret. The front third of the projectile wasn't lead, it was aluminum, wood pulp, tinite, anything lightweight and moldable. That design shifted the center of gravity backward, making the bullet tail-heavy. In flight, it was gyroscopically stable, but when it hit a target, it pitched violently, tumbling, fragmenting, mangling. In December of 1914, German Professor K. Stargart examined soldiers hit by the Mark 7. His verdict: the bullet disintegrated on the lightest contact with bone, producing what he called an explosive effect. And yet, it remained legal. Its metal jacket fully enclosed the exotic core, keeping it in line with the Hague Convention's rules. This was engineering brilliance and ethical navigation, fired out of a bolt-action rifle. Later came the Mark 7Z and Mark 8Z, variants propelled by flake-shaped nitrocellulose powder. The Mark 8Z, built for machine guns, carried a boat-tail design inspired by the Swiss GP-11. It reached 42,000 psi in chamber pressure and flew faster, farther and flatter. But at a cost. Rifle bores paid the price. Erosion, wear, metal fatigue. It was so aggressive that use in infantry rifles was banned, except in emergencies. Still, in the fog of war, soldiers reached for what worked, and the Mark 8Z worked too well to be ignored. After the lessons of the Boer War, the British military was ready for change. The 303 British, with its rimmed case and lower velocity, was outclassed on the open veldt by the flatter-shooting 7x57mm Mauser. It was time to modernize. In 1912, the War Office revealed its answer, the 276 Enfield, a new cartridge designed for reach, speed and punch. Paired with the pattern 1913 rifle, the design borrowed from the German Mauser with bold intent. Britain wanted better ballistics and superior long-range capability, but idealism doesn't always match field conditions. Troop trials in 1913 exposed glaring issues: excessive recoil, vicious muzzle flash, overheating barrels and accelerated wear. Engineers tried to tame the beast, experimenting with cooler burning powders, but then the world erupted. In August of 1914, the First World War pulled every priority into the trenches. Britain shelved the Enfield project, reissued the Lee Enfield and kept the 303 British in service, armed with the now perfected Mark 7 bullet. It was an unintended encore. The cartridge they planned to replace became a backbone once again. And history would repeat this twist again and again. War sparks innovation, and when the threat rises into the clouds, innovation gets strange. In the early stages of the First World War, British troops faced a new enemy, a silent predator drifting overhead, the Zeppelin. Traditional rounds weren't enough. You couldn't pierce hydrogen and hope for results. You had to ignite it. So they did. Enter Wing Commander Frank Brock, not just a Royal Navy volunteer. He was part of the Brock fireworks dynasty. With potassium chlorate, yellow phosphorus and a healthy disregard for subtlety. Frank helped create the Brock bullet, one of several incendiary designs aimed skyward. Alongside Brock came the Pomeroy bullet filled with dynamite, the Buckingham round loaded with pyrophoric phosphorus, and the De Wilde, a stealthy incendiary with no visible trail. Together they formed a cocktail of chemical fury loaded into Vickers and Lewis guns during nighttime intercepts. Each round wasn't just engineered, it was orchestrated. Anti-Zeppelin patrols mixed Brock's showmanship with Pomeroy's blast and Buckingham's glow. British airmen didn't just shoot, they lit the sky. And when the job shifted to observation, the O Mark I appeared, breaking apart with a puff of smoke on impact so gunners could track where their bullets landed. Explosive bullets fizzled out in the 1930s, but their role lived on in Mark 6 and 7 incendiaries. By the end of World War I, British factories had churned out 7 billion rounds of 303 ammunition. 7 billion. That's not just supply, that's a symphony of steel, fire and purpose. When the smoke cleared and uniforms faded into memory, the 303 British found a second life. It left the trenches behind and settled into the shoulders of hunters, collectors and historians. Surplus rifles poured into the hands of civilians. Lee Enfields with stories etched into every scratch and ding. And for sportsmen in Canada, Australia and New Zealand, the cartridge was more than affordable. It was trustworthy, soft recoil, reliable feeding, ballistics that made white-tailed deer and black bears think twice. Though modern rounds, like the .308 Winchester, would outpace it in velocity and flatter flight paths, many shooters still favored the .303 for its comfort. Its recoil was kind, its punch sufficient, and its legacy untouchable. Commercial ammo stayed afloat, with manufacturers like Remington, Federal, and Winchester still producing soft points, full metal jackets, and hollow tips. But there were caveats. Surplus military rounds often came loaded with corrosive primers. Shooters learned quickly, clean that barrel or pay the price. And those hot-loaded Mark 8Z rounds designed for machine guns, sure, they offered range, but at the cost of barrel erosion, best saved for emergencies or temptation. And through all this, the cartridge endured, passing from soldier to sportsman, from arsenal to attic. Sometimes history isn't held in museums. It's carried in pockets, tucked into bookcases, passed from grandfather to grandson. The .303 British left the battlefield and entered memory, not just as a cartridge, but as a keepsake. During World War I, soldiers received Princess Mary's Christmas tins, a gift from the Crown to warm the heart. Nestled inside some of these boxes was a pencil made from a spent .303 casing. The round that once defended the Empire there now helped pen letters home. There's a quiet poetry in that transformation. Brass once filled with powder, now filled with thoughts, and across decades the cartridge persisted, not just in hunting grounds or surplus crates, but in classrooms, collections, and conversations. Even today, shooters and storytellers alike hold it with reverence, because it's not just about the specs, the pressure ratings, or the metallurgy. It's about what it meant, what it saw, and how it carried the weight of history with dignity. For over 70 years, the .303 British was more than ammunition. It was the punctuation to global events. The round that helped shape modern warfare and later wrote itself into civilian tradition, from battlefield to ballpoint, from recoil to remembrance. This chapter may close as, but the rifle that bore it still stands tall. Next time we'll follow the bolt forward and step into the story of the Lee Enfield, where history rests, waiting for another pull. Until then, the .303 British stands ready. Thank you for tuning in to another one of my interesting videos. Please hit like, leave a comment, and if you enjoy videos like this, please subscribe. Until next time.